What Studios, and this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me at your next event. I like to party with the people. This week's shows, as I have one public show, and since I'm recording this on Friday, I have it tonight at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. Very excited about that. That's the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. They have a full bar, the kitchen's open. They have pool tables, pool tournament on Friday nights. So if you want to make some money on a Friday night, you can try your hand at pool. Make some money out of playing pool. Yeah. Like Baggy May, right? Oh, Rod Stewart. I was thinking about that. Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll do some classic rock tonight. I am your humble DJ. And it's, like I said, Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. You're the stars of the show. Karaoke. If you sing in the shower, if you sing in the car, you could sing on stage at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. All right. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Friday, August 28th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Trump closes GOP convention with speech deriding Biden as extremist. President Trump formally accepted the Republican Party's nomination on the final night of the GOP's national convention on Thursday. In a live address from the White House, Trump defended his record and harshly criticized Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden. Trump said he has, quote, spent the last 4 years reversing the damage Joe Biden has inflicted over the last 47 years, end quote. He accused Biden of having, quote, the most extreme set of proposals ever put forward by a major party nominee, end quote, painting Democrats as far-left extremists who would defund police and stoke violence and chaos in the nation's cities. Quote, your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding citizens. Let me start that over. Quote, your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans or whether we give them free rein to violent anarchists, agitators, and criminals who threaten our citizens, end quote, Trump said. This is according to NBC News and the Washington Post. Number 2, Hurricane Laura leaves 6 dead as it heads inland. Hurricane Laura killed at least 6 people in Louisiana on Thursday. Quote, it looks like 1,000 tornadoes went through here, end quote, said Brent Geinman, who rode out the storm with 3 family members in Moss Bluff near Lake Charles, Louisiana. Quote, it's just destruction everywhere, end quote. Laura hit near the Louisiana-Texas state line as a powerful Category 4 hurricane with top sustained winds of 150 miles per hour. It weakened to a tropical storm depression as it pushed inland into Arkansas with still dangerous winds and rains ahead of a forecast curve east through Kentucky and Tennessee, the National Hurricane Center said. Forecasters who also warned of the possibility of tornadoes in Louisiana, Arkansas, and western Mississippi. This is according to USA Today and CNN. Number 3, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announces resignation due to illness. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, or Abe, announced his resignation due to ill health on Friday, 4 days after becoming the country's longest-serving prime minister. During an 8-year tenure, Abe oversaw Japan's recovery from a nuclear disaster triggered by a devastating earthquake and tsunami. With no successor in his ruling Liberal Party, he's expected to stay on until the party picks one parliamentary approves. Okay, picks one and Parliament approves. Abe, 65, has stepped down for health concerns before in 2007, less than a year into his first term. When he was elected again in 2012, he said he was managing his ulcerative colitis with new medications, but he said Friday he had suffered a relapse. 2 hospital visits this month fueled speculation that his health had taken a turn for the worse. This is according to NBC and the New York Times. Number 4, Harris, Biden counter Trump's message on GOP convention's final night. Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Senator Kamala Harris, Democrat, California, slammed President Trump's coronavirus response on Thursday, the final night of the Republican National Convention. Trump, quote, froze, end quote, at the beginning of the pandemic, Harris said. And he has shown a, quote, reckless disregard for the well-being of the American people, end quote. Harris also took aim at the GOP convention, which has featured speeches from numerous Trump relatives, including First Lady Melania Trump and the president's 4 adult children. She said the event's main purpose was to, quote, soothe Donald Trump's ego to make him feel good, end quote. But the truth, she added, is that Trump has failed to protect, quote, the health and safety and the well-being of the American people, end quote. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden tried to counter Trump's acceptance speech, airing a new campaign spotlighting the multiple crises facing America under Trump. This is according to CNN and Deadline. Number 5, 1 million more Americans filed jobless claims last week. Another 1 million people filed initial applications for unemployment benefits last week. The data marked a slight drop from the 1.1 million who applied the previous week, but it was the 22nd time in 23 weeks that jobless claims reached or exceeded 1 million. A total of 58 million Americans have now sought new unemployment since the coronavirus crisis hit in March. The latest figures showed that layoffs were continuing as a summer spike slowed the economic recovery that began when businesses started reopening in May after the initial lockdowns aimed at curbing the spread of the coronavirus. Quote, with September rent due soon and food insecurity already at elevated levels, the worst is yet to come if Congress and the president can't turn their attention to a pandemic relief, end quote, said Andrew Stetner, senior fellow at the Century Foundation. This is according to USA Today. Number 6, coronavirus cases spike in Midwest. Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota reported their biggest single-day increases in coronavirus infections on Thursday. The spike in the Midwest came as the total number of COVID-19 deaths nationwide rose above 180,000. Nationally, new cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are declining, but officials across the country are bracing for another surge in cases as schools reopen. Infections in South Dakota have been rising since a massive annual motorcycle rally held in Sturgis from August 7th to August 16th. The South Dakota Health Department said at least 40 cases had been traced to the event. The U.S. has the most confirmed coronavirus cases and deaths around the world, although a per capita basis ranks it 12th in deaths and 10th in cases. This is according to Reuters. Number 7, CDC leader clarifies new COVID-19 testing guidance. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Robert Redfield on Thursday clarified the agency's controversial new coronavirus testing guidance, saying that people who have contact with or confirmed or probable COVID-19 patients could be tested. The CDC on Monday called for limiting testing to those who show symptoms or are deemed by doctors for public health officials to be high risk. Redfield said in his clarification that people don't need to have symptoms to be tested. Quote, everyone who needs a COVID-19 test can get a test, end quote, Redfield said. Quote, everyone who wants a test does not necessarily need a test. The key is to engage the needed public health community in the decision with the appropriate follow-up action, end quote. This is according to The Hill and CNBC. Number 8, NBA players resuming playoff games after boycott to protest police killing. The NBA players met Thursday and voted in favor of resuming the professional basketball playoffs, ESPN reported. A day earlier, the Milwaukee Bucks decided to boycott their Wednesday game, the 5th in their series against the Orlando Magic, to protest the fatal shooting of an unarmed black man, Jacob Blake, by a white police officer. The two other Wednesday games were later postponed, and other professional sports leagues promptly joined the boycott. No final decision or date for the resuming the playoffs has been set, as talks continue among players, coaches, and team owners. The turmoil came 4 years to the day after former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick first chose to kneel during the national anthem before his team's games to protest racial injustice. This is according to ESPN. Number 9, United Airlines announces what could be its biggest pilot furlough ever. United Airlines announced Thursday that it would have to cut 2,850 pilot jobs this year unless it gets further government aid to help it through the dissemination of the travel industry by the coronavirus pandemic. The cuts would amount to a 21% reduction in United's pilot positions and would be the biggest pilot furlough in the airline's history. Airlines have requested another $25 billion from the federal government to help them pay employees through March. The first tranche of aid barred the companies from cutting jobs until October 1st, but talks on further payments have stalled as Congress failed to reach an agreement on another round of coronavirus relief. This is according to Reuters. Number 10, Tour de France threatened as COVID-19 red alerts issued for departure points. The 2020 Tour de France was in danger of unraveling 2 days ahead of its start, scheduled for Saturday, after the Alps Maritimes region, where the opening stages are to be held, was placed under a COVID-19 red alert. The concerns about the race escalated late Thursday when the Lotto Soudal team announced that 2 members of its support staff had tested non-negative for the coronavirus and had been sent home from Nice, France. Quote, safety remains priority number 1, end quote, the team said in a statement. Tour director Christian Prudhomme dismissed worries about the fate of the race early this year, saying, quote, only world wars have stopped the Tour de France, end quote. France's education minister, Jean-Michel Blanquer, said the tour would go ahead to show, quote, we can continue to live, end quote. This is according to The Guardian. That's 10 things you need to know today for Friday, August 28th, 2020. Thank you so much for listening. This has been What Makes You Smarter. Now, I've been doing the 10 things you need to know today, and that's primarily little news bits that I've been getting, on the daily. But I think I'm going to do some good news. So stay tuned to this feed, and I think there'll be some good news, and maybe on this date in history, there's something else to kind of balance out all the bad news. I remember Gary Gnews on Saturday morning cartoons would say, no news is good news with Gary Gnu. And yes, I feel that. Sometimes the news gets really sensationalized. And I'm part of the problem. I'm reading it right to you, and I'm finding out the things I need to know today as you find out the things you need to know today. But don't use me as your only news source, please. That's why I always put a footnote at the bottom of every news item. And I can let you know there's further reading at these publications. So if you're getting all your news from me, don't. I'm a moron. I'm just reading things in front of me. But I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to get smarter. So stay tuned to this feed, and I'm going to put a whole lot more than just the 10 things you need to know today. There'll be some history in there. There'll be some good news. Yeah, let's find some good news. Hope you're doing okay. Drop me some comments. Let me know what you're up to these days. Throw me a 5-star review, why don't you? I accept nothing less than 5 stars. Yeah, heard me? And drop me some comments. I mean, maybe I'll read your comments in future episodes of What Makes You Smarter. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Also, check out KeysDAN Gaming, Facebook.com/KeysDAN Gaming or Twitch.tv/KeysDAN. You can watch me play video games. And maybe suggest what game should I be playing online. What do you like to watch? Just more content from yours truly. Thank you so much for paying attention to me and putting up with me, because I guess I'm a glory hog. No, I need the attention. Am I too thirsty? I don't know. Maybe. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.